the confidence is hard to ignore. Like
not just him,
the team.
the team.
Yeah, the team. Yeah, like a lot of the Tesla folks on X posting or quote tweeting his master plan part 2 from 8 years ago or whatever, 7 years ago, where he's like, I wrote this 8 years ago. And it has like the whole robotaxi thing, figured out, like all the different replies and posts around autonomy. And there was a post I made that says something about Elon and Tesla being extremely confident about robotaxi, and that, FSD 12 may have been like the start of something epic if they execute at a high level. And then he liked that post. So it's like little things like that. But I think the one thing that I want to that I'm trying to caution myself towards is like, there have been these hype cycles before with the Tesla story too, where we get really excited that they're going down a certain path, that have it all figured out. And then it's like, yeah, it's an incremental step, but it doesn't quite get us to where we need to be from like a technology perspective. But I do agree that ever since V12 has launched, it just feels different. It feels different. People are saying different things with their experiences. The amount of new YouTube channels and new X accounts that are now posting FSD V12 content has blown up. It's like a whole ecosystem that's starting to appear now around the Tesla story, of like people just posting their self-driving drives. You had a podcast, I believe it was a former NBA player that was interviewing an NBA player, and then they were doing a podcast while the Tesla was driving them around. That signals something. That signals something, right? And having the real life experience of actually having the software and it driving me and my wife around everywhere, everybody commenting on my videos when I'm talking about FSD V12, the overwhelming number of positive comments around how good the software is, Tesla lowering the price, which Hans has talked about, in the past, like he called us a while ago. Wait until there's a free trial and Tesla lowers the price. That's a signal that says the company's ready to get this thing to go wide. And we're still at the very first versions of their neural net approach with the least amount of efficiency that's built into the algorithms or whatever, the neural nets, with the lowest amount of training compute at their headquarters, with the smallest amount of fleet, or number of cars in the fleet, which is the search engine for the data. So it's like it's going somewhere, right? It's definitely going somewhere. So I think that the question becomes, is the 8-camera system that they have in the existing fleet, because it's a two-part question, is the existing hardware good enough for robotaxi so that they can turn it on relatively soon? And if that's not the case, it seems like, okay, if that's not the case, the next thing will definitely have that.
So
right?
Let's put a pin in that, because I definitely want to talk about that, because that's a sore subject for me, or just something I'm passionate about. I understand people who don't believe in this right now. I do. I think I said this. I've said this a couple times. I say it to my friends and family all the time. I am so thankful that I have FSD, because if I didn't, I can see where somebody would have sold out of the stock and stopped believing in the company. I could see it. 100% can see it. It makes sense to me. If you don't use the software religiously, if you haven't seen the evolution and you don't understand what's happening with 12 right now, I get it. I get margins are coming down, weak sales, auto sales in general, macros looking like crap. Everybody is against Elon, Twitter. I get it. But you know what? When I get in that car and I one shift down and it goes from point A to point B without me doing anything, to the point where now, I'm not proud to say this, but it used to be where we're switching lanes. I always check. Now it's more like we're switching lanes. I'll be like, oh shit, check. Because I'm just it's never fucked up, ever. Like, knock on wood. I mean, like, I'm not recommending this, but like I'm getting to that point now. I'm also getting to a point where every once in a while I won't use FSD. Why? Because I live in what I call the Florida of Austin, And so there's all kinds of development, and I'll want to go and slowly drive by to see like some of the progress in the real estate, because I own a lot of real estate here. So I'm passionate about it, and I'll just want to see the progress. But I find myself like kind of scaring myself driving without FSD, because I'm like, oh my God, I'm not a good driver. FSD has brought such awareness to, not that I'm a bad driver when I'm paying attention, but it's like, man, I can't pay attention as perfectly as FSD does for as long as FSD does. And you just realize how you're not as good of a driver without FSD. I mean, have you experienced that?
I definitely have experienced where not having FSD. So let's say I'm on a trip where I have to rent a car that's not a Tesla, for example, doesn't have FSD, and I have to drive. I find myself constantly missing FSD for sure, 100%. It's. Go ahead.
I missed something. Can you say it again?
Did you hear Alexa just now?
Say it again.
What the hell? Stop spying on me. Turn off. There she goes.
Oh, damn.
Goodbye.
She recognized that command. Been trained on that.
Not the first time it's happened. What were you going to say?
Well,
safety.
So, but not just do you miss it. What I'm saying is, do you find yourself maybe like you're not staying straight in the lane? You kind of,
100%.
Maybe swerve a little bit, not like swerve in a bad way, but like, oh, you're kind of ping-ponging a little bit. Or maybe you go to pick up your phone and you're like, even if you're just like quickly doing a little something, you're like, oh my God, like, what am I doing?
It's more precise. So I I might be biased, but I do think I'm a pretty safe driver. Like I definitely, I've taken steps to ensure that I'm driving defensively in a lot of situations sometimes, but I'm also from the Northeast. And if the vibe on the road is getting aggressive, I don't mind getting aggressive if I need to get to where I need to go. But I do find, so for me, the FSD V12 question is like that safety is already baked in for me. Because you're right, I never have to really, and again, this is like knock on wood kind of thing. The system is not perfect because there are areas that people are recording things that are not going, so it's going well, right? But it does seem like it's geographic by nature because of the data that the system has available to it, right? But in the areas that I'm in, which there's a lot of Teslas, and so a lot of the data is going to come from those areas, I am not concerned that this is unsafe. If anything, I am thankful to have the software in my car because it makes it more safe. Yeah. Because not only do I have a system that's navigating the roads in a safe manner and is aware of all its surroundings and it respects the law the way it was written, and it opens up bandwidth for me to not just have to worry about this, but to worry about my surroundings. It 1000% sure, like without a shadow of a doubt, FSD 12 supervised makes me a significantly safer driver, without a shadow of a doubt. But now we're getting to the point where it's also extremely comfortable. So yeah. I always miss it when I don't have it.
Do you think it's going to be a level 4 by 8.8? You better, because you got a bet going on, so.
Yeah, with the wife.
Yeah.
End of this year, I said, right?
Yep.
By December 2024.
Look at him trying to caveat. Remember, I didn't say 8.8. I said end of the year.
I did. These are just facts, bro. Don't try to put Don't come out with alternative facts.
All right. Cindy was like messaging me in the back here, like, hey, don't forget, like, try to trick him.
Cindy's taking a nap. She's like, friggin'.
By the way, it's been a minute since since we've spoken last quarter. Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Yeah.
You guys are gonna be great parents.
Thank you, brother.
Like, having met you guys in person, not just this fake world we're in. You guys are gonna be excellent parents.
Thank you, brother. I really appreciate that. That's very kind of you to say. Yeah, we're very excited. She's quite sizable now. 8.5 months. There's a big belly. Yeah.
Rework that phrasing, my friend.
I'm gonna cut that out.
She's quite sizable.
We'll cut this out. Anyway, level 4 by 8.8. So here's the thing, and this I've talked to other people about this, is like the thing about AI the thing about just software and algorithms and artificial intelligence, especially artificial intelligence and using neural nets to solve for things. The moment it goes from almost there to significantly better than anyone else happens very quickly. So if we look at examples,
Thank you for saying that.
like
nobody else says that. Everyone says it's the March of Nines takes forever. I'm like, I don't think that's how. I think it's the opposite.
I just think you need the proper platform and enough compute to process the information so that it reaches a certain threshold of acceptance, right? But like if we use chess as an example, and these are very crude examples, but they are around this kind of similar domain. Chess went from almost as good as the best chess player to better than the best chess player within the span of a year or two. It just happened really quickly because it's just training the system to be a little bit better. But a little bit better when the maximum intelligence is millions of times more intelligent than a human. If you go from as intelligent as a human to 10x more intelligent than a human, it's still a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a percent of total intelligence. It's just on the scale, on the logarithmic scale, we're still at the bottom. And so a little bit more above it, that's where AI can get to very quickly, right? So it happened with chess. It happened with Go, right? So the Go system where DeepMind, was it DeepMind? I think it was. I forget that. Yeah, it was DeepMind. It went from almost as good as the best Go player to blowing everybody out of the water within a few short months, right? And so that's the lens that I view this FSD thing through. But it is underpinned and it's heavily hinging on compute, on training compute, and then ensuring that the training compute is there to process all that data, and then the inference compute on the cars have to be advanced enough to process all that data. The thing that I learned from James Dalma that kind of makes me hopeful, and this is a long way of answering your question, where I think there's a chance they'll have a level 4 system somewhere that's ready to be rolled out by A8. There's a very small chance, but I think it does exist, is that the hardware 3 cars in the fleet today that Tesla has that have 5-year-old chips, for this last 5, since they've had the hardware and they've been working towards getting FSD better and better, the thing that didn't click for me until I spoke to James the last time I spoke to him, James Dalma, is that the chip in those cars, hardware 3, not hardware 4, but hardware 3, the neural net chips that process the end-to-end neural nets have just been dead weight until V12. That the system has been leveraging the CPU chip, which is not designed to process end-to-end neural net jobs, whatever the hell. I'm using very crude language, but like trying to simplify a little bit, right? For myself primarily, right? So, but now with version 12, now Tesla is able to offload all that work to what hardware 3 was supposed to be doing 5 years ago. So for the first time in hardware 3's history, since V12 was released, the chip, the computer is actually working as intended. And it's the first generation of that code, whatever you want to call it, right? So the inference computer, which is the one on the car, is now humming for the first time. So it could get to level 4 because it's just getting it so that it does it all the time. It's not so much like, oh, can you do this maneuver? It's like, no, can you do this maneuver all the time? Because it can do unprotected lefts, it can do right, left turns, it can negotiate around pedestrians. It can do complex maneuvers around if you're trying to get around traffic and there's a shoulder and you need to intrude on the shoulder. And there was a situation when I was with Gally. We were at a stop sign and there was unfortunately a homeless person on something. He was like acting crazy, going back and forth. And he started rubbing his butt against the one truck on the opposite side of the road. And then the car's like, fuck this, I'm getting out of here. Right. And it zipped by the crazy homeless person without hitting the crazy homeless person. It's like, okay, that was an insanely complex situation and it figured out how to do it. Okay. So if it can do that, what can't it do? Right. And that's kind of where I'm sitting at, but it's heavily dependent on compute hardware, inference hardware, and data. Those are like the 3. It's a 3-body problem, which I haven't watched yet.
Let's transition to this conversation about the hardware. So first of all, you explained that very well, and so this is kind of my domain of expertise, is talking about this space. Yeah, not claiming I'm James Dalma, and it sounds like what you guys are probably talking about is the fact that we've gone from heuristics to end. And what that means is normally the way it works is in any server in general, your CPU, your cache for your memory is the bottleneck into your CPU. Your CPU is the bottleneck into your GPU. Your GPU is going to be the bottleneck into your inference chip, right? So that's how it works. And a lot of that is based on CPUs being serial. Your memory is essentially trying to do CPU scheduling. Your GPU runs, parallel operations. So that's great. So that's why it's a big deal. And then you have your inference chip that is designed for neural nets. And to your point, going from heuristics to end allows us to actually make that where the majority of the workload is happening. And so all these other bottlenecks have kind of alleviated, and we're able to use that chip to its maximum capacity, which I don't even know if we're quite doing yet, right? So that's a huge deal. So I'm of the opinion that the PCB boards, the actual computers that we have within the dual computers that we have within the Teslas, I do not think that that's a bottleneck. Tesla's done so much work on creating these compilers. There's no issue from that perspective, in my opinion. And I think the big debate now in the community is camera placement, which kind of blows my mind that they think that is actually a challenge. Now, I hear what everybody says. The B-pillar location. Okay, I can move my head and the camera can't move and I can go lean forward. Okay, I get all that. My question though is, what makes you think that we can't solve all that with software? The car can see all around with the cameras. We know that's how it was designed. It was literally designed to be put in place so we can see all around the car. What makes you think that we can't solve this the way it is? What makes you think that if this was genuinely an issue, that with hardware 4, with all the new vehicles they're building now, that they wouldn't address this? What makes you think that extra dummy camera spot that we have on the hardware 4 vehicles, that on the front of the car, that hasn't been, I'm talking about, like right behind the rear view mirror, those cameras, there's an extra one there. There's no camera in there, but there's a spot for one. What makes you think that they wouldn't have gone ahead and put something that has a greater kind of fisheye view? Clearly, they're not stupid. If this was a genuine issue, they would have taken actions to address it. Now, I get it. From our point of view, sometimes we're in an unprotected left-hand turn or right-hand turn. We're like, oh man, there's an obstacle. And we think the reason the car fails or screws up is because it can't see. We've been hearing this for so long, right? Even Chuck Cook, love him, love his videos. Florida guy. I'm a Florida guy.
Goated.
He's
my
military
favorite
guy
pilot of all time. Shout out JetBlue.
He's military. We're both Navy. So look, all respect for sure. He used to say this about his unprotected left-hand turn. He used to say it's a camera placement issue. It's a camera placement issue. All of a sudden, guess what? Now we can make these unprotected left-hand turns like it's nothing, like it's a joke, right? So I think everybody is just so stuck to what they know, and what they know is, well, more hardware. It's like they default to more hardware every time. And Tesla time and time again has realized it's not more hardware. If more hardware was needed, they would do it. They would test it. We don't see that.
So what do you think about the... Sorry, go ahead. Finish your thought.
Well, I'm just saying, I just think it takes a lot of... I don't want to say anything bad on your channel, but it takes a lot of balls to sit there and think that what's missing here to solve this problem, despite the fact that you have no real data, you have just your one little experience, You don't actually know what the car's thinking, what the car's seeing in that moment. You don't know why it happened. You don't know the Christmas tree of decisions that happened along the way. And you think, I got it. Another camera.
Okay, so let me play.
Put me in, coach.
Let me play devil's advocate there, because I think so. What do you think about the argument that having a single B-pillar camera that looks on either side, the regulators will never approve it because if it fails, the FSD just can't operate? What do you think about that argument?
Regulators are not. No, well, that's not true. That's if a camera failed. I mean, the car can pull over to the side, right? Like, what happens if anything fails? What happens if a tire fails? What happens if a computer fails? What happens? I mean, like, lots of things can fail in the car. You don't have redundant tires, do you? What happens if the tire fails? What are you gonna do? The car can still drive even if the cameras are out. I've tested this. I've literally gone with tape, blacked out all the cameras except the front one. Does just fine.
Really?
Yeah.
How's it change lanes?
Well, I didn't test it like in that sense. Like, I didn't go on the highway with it. I was just testing to see, like, hey, can it still maneuver?
But that's a concern.
And it'll scream at you, by the way. I'm not saying go try this. It'll scream at you. I don't even know if it'll still let you do this. This was on, I think, version 10 I was doing this. But
yeah,
my point is, get rid of cameras. It can still do it. It's not completely dependent on having to see every single angle 24/7. We're not. I can drive with one eye.
Okay, but the concern is, like, let's say you're in the highway, you're going 65 miles an hour, and then your side cameras fail, right? How does the system properly gauge where it needs to pull over, or how can it change lanes? You know what I'm saying?
How's it gonna do if a tire goes out?
Okay, so your argument is that in how transportation is being legislated and regulated right now, that sort of redundancy is not going to be needed in present time because vehicles have so many points of failure that it's not gonna matter. Is that your argument?
Redundancy is, of course, important. The redundancy in this case will matter on the computer itself, not the cameras, because at that point, like, where does it end? Right? Like, are we going to have every car looking like a semi-truck that has two tires on it on each axle? I mean, like, where's it? You tell me. Like, at a certain point, doesn't it seem a little ridiculous? Like, because they could easily pull off to the side, and all of a sudden you call the Tesla AAA, and it comes, and maybe another robotaxi picks you up and carries it on, and then, like these are such easy things to solve and address. Like, it's not.
Yeah. I mean, I think the way I view it is like let's say in a worst case scenario, regulators do not approve level 4 on the existing fleet because of lack of redundancy for hardware, camera or whatever. Worst case scenario is Tesla comes out with a car that will be approved for level 4, level 5, that is underpinned by the same neural net end-to-end approach that they're doing with their existing car, which is what's going to give that new system a way to navigate the roads.
Yeah.
Right. So it's just okay. So we put additional cameras and we just feed it more data. It will take time. It will definitely delay the arrival of that system, but it's not like the technology is somehow obsolete. You just add more cameras, you just add more data, and the system learns how to drive with more cameras. So to me, it's just a delay.
I don't even think it would take that long. I think you would just design like a module that has 2 cameras built into it, so you could just plug it right in, redundant power sources to each of those cameras, so it's not a power source issue. And you might have to change, just, do some testing, obviously, and to get some data because of the slight offset of where those cameras are in relation to each other. I'm literally saying, like, stack the cameras right on top of each other. For 2 cameras stacked right on top of each other on one module that plugs right into where it is now. I mean, there's lots of mechanical hardware will not be the issue. If that's what's keeping us between robotaxis and regulators allowing us to have it, like that will get solved quickly. So I don't think regulation is an issue at all. I think people are overhyping this. You tell me, and this is, if I'm really dreaming, 8-8. We see Ron DeSantis, we see Greg Abbott maybe we see Newsom. Newsom was at the AI opening, at the AI headquarter opening. Maybe he's there. But I could easily see Abbott and DeSantis being there and being like, we're happy to be the first states to allow Tesla to come in. Florida has regulation for this already. You can come. We have open regulation for robotaxis. I think Texas has very similar laws. Many states have adopted what Florida has put into place. On top of that, where am I? I live in the Tampa Bay area. I live in St. Petersburg. Who's headquartered in St. Petersburg? ARK Invest, Kathy Woods. She literally was just at a meeting with our mayor about all the stuff she's doing here. She wants to have her own kind of annual conference here, all this stuff. Do you think there's like at least 1% chance that she's brokering something to bring robotaxis to this area? Like, I mean, what a great city for it. I mean, I think you're going to see states clamoring to get this there and not look behind, because cities are dying right now. You could argue Austin is like one of the only major cities growing the way it is. You know, I would argue where I'm at here in the Tampa Bay area and Miami are the other ones, but I don't know many cities exploding in growth right now.
Georgia, I mean, Atlanta, like a lot of the southern states, the metro areas,
Southeast,
Nashville. Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. So like all these other states, all these other cities are gonna be clamoring to do something to bring it in, right? It's a new tax source. It's safer. It's less deaths in your city. It clears up congestion from accident.
Cheaper cost per mile.
The insurance crisis happening right now. Like my point is, I think regulation's kind of going to get out of the way because it's going to be so obvious, all the benefits. In the same way, we still have it right now. We have it. We're all allowed to use it. We haven't seen regulators get in the way of it. Do you really think all of a sudden they're going to start with robotaxis once it's actually feature complete? Once it's actually as safe as possible? Once it's actually better than humans? You think that's when they're going to start putting their thumb on the scale? That's crazy.
I mean, so hold that thought. I got to pee. Hold on.
Go ahead.
Hold that.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Farzad, in case you edit this and you watch this later, nice haircut.
I can hear you.
Oh, didn't expect that. You got headphones on.
That's what you should have said. You should have said your haircut sucks while I'm in there fishing. That's so
I'm too
funny.
honest.
Oh, I love it. Okay. So I might just
amateur hour over
in
here.
there. I agree with you. So I agree that the cost benefit analysis, like the value that this technology brings to any jurisdiction is far too large to ignore, and it creates a forcing function for places to adopt this technology as quickly as possible. I agree with you 1,000%.
That's not even my main argument. My main argument is if Ron DeSantis and Abbott have this going on in their states, there's no way Newsom's not going to pave the freaking way to make sure that this is in California.
No, I agree.
Like,
I agree with you.
Incentives aside, ego will play here.
But you know, the fascinating thing about this conversation is that there's still people out there that do not think this technology is ready for that. That's where this conversation, like, that's where those folks will say, you all need to temper your shit because it's not even there yet, right? So I think up to this point, the conversation has been gearing towards this is probably a lot closer than those people think, and that's where I agree with this whole conversation. Is like, we are a lot closer than a lot of people think. It's just it's been such a long time to get to this point that it's very hard to believe, and it's almost like you have to do a continuous exercise to test your thesis against that says, I thought in 2019 it was going to be ready in 2020, it wasn't. I thought in 2020 it was going to be ready by 2021, it wasn't. I thought in 2021 that it was going to be ready by 2022, it wasn't. Right? So like, what is stopping this story from being the same exact thing in 2024? Great
question. First of all, let's parse people out into buckets here. You got the people who just don't think it's going to work, think it's so far out. They've never been in a Tesla. They've never experienced it at all. They just think it's science fiction and we're all full of shit. You got those people.
We're being paid.
Yeah,
we're being paid.
Then you got the people who just say that they love to drive. They would never even use it. It doesn't even make sense. Why would I do that? I can just call an Uber. Why do I need a robotaxi? Like they haven't gone past thinking for 5 seconds. They haven't done the mental exercise to just go one level deeper and be like, okay, what if it costs half as much? What then? What if you don't need a car anymore because it's so cheap? You never have to deal with maintenance, washing your car. You can go on and on. They haven't even thought about that. Okay, so there's those people. Then you have an interesting set of people who are people who do believe in this, but have sold out of their stock. And so they've got kind of an axe to grind because they want to be right and they want to buy lower. I don't blame them for wanting to buy lower, but they're putting a lot of noise out there. And I can almost bet you that after this first quarter earnings, it probably will go down more. Who knows? They'll probably start buying because they don't want to go to 88 without owning Tesla. I can almost guarantee you. And to be frank, I actually think the stock's going to go up after this earnings. Yeah.
Tuesday's going to be interesting. Not investment advice.
No, never investment advice. I'm just playing the odds here. I can't tell you the last time the stock went up after earnings. So it's like we're eventually going to be due. So you got those people. Then you got the people who believe in it, but they still just think it's going to be too far away. And those are the people who talk about, well, they just don't have the right hardware, or they don't have enough inference yet, or they're just going to need so much more data, or the regulator's never going to allow them. And every time I hear these people talk, I'm like, none of those are issues. Like those are not issues. If those were the issues, the hardware, the regulators, whatever, Tesla would love to be in that situation. They're like, all right, we'll solve this so quickly. This will be done by the end of the year, guaranteed, if those are the obstacles. Like, no problem. And then you have us, the people who believe in this. And to your point, this year, next year, people who are stuck on that, like, well, when's it going to happen? We fall into this trap so many times. My thesis when I started investing into Tesla back in 2018, it was not about EVs. It was not about sustainability. It was about autonomy. That's what I got into. I literally said to my friends, my family, I've had one car ever in my life. It was a Ford 8-cylinder 2005 Mustang GT. Loved it. Manual, fat stick, rumbled, just beautiful. Loved it. And I always said, after I paid it off, I said, I'll never buy another car unless it drives itself. And then I got introduced to Tesla, right? I was already an Elon fanboy because, engineer by nature. So, of course, I knew who Elon was. I grew up in the Space Coast of Florida. And I got into it because I believe in autonomy. 100% believe in it. In fact, I had a long conversation with this guy named Jonathan Dow. You can look him up. Jonathan Dow is a very famous New Yorker who created the concept of pop-ups. So, like, think of a warehouse in New York City where for 2 nights it's going to be a restaurant by a famous chef, just pop up. The next day it'll be a fashion show, whatever. He came up with that concept. I actually think he's Iranian too, funny enough. Or maybe he's Lebanese. Sorry. But anyways.
My cousin.
But he's very famous, right? He's from New York. Made so much money that he eventually discovered St. Pete, and he's bought up like pretty much all the real estate in St. Pete. I heard of this guy. I'm like, I got to meet him. We sat there and we spoke for like 4 hours, and we were just talking about autonomous vehicles. And this was back in like 2016, 2017. And he was talking about how the world's going to change, but people just don't know it yet. He was saying like the way cities are laid out, all these parking garages, all this parking space, all this real estate's all going to change. People are going to live out further because it's going to be so cheap, so easy to come. It's not going to be a big obstacle to come into the city. Like, and he was thinking about this way back then. And I was like, oh my God, I haven't heard anyone talk about this the way I felt about it. Anyway, so that's why I got into Tesla. So I didn't get into Tesla thinking it's going to happen next year. Oh, it's going to happen next year. Oh, Elon said next year it's going to happen then. I came into it with a thesis of autonomy. When that happens, I don't know. But my bet was that it was going to be Tesla to figure this out. And not Tesla, Elon. Because Elon was the person that kept proving the impossible. So back to your question, long way to get in there. Maybe it doesn't happen on 8/8. Maybe it doesn't happen at the end of this year. But what I can tell you is we haven't been at this that long. Really, with FSD beta, we've been at this for 3.5 years, 4 years, maybe most. And the rate of progress is insane. Even if you told me it was 3 years away and then we'd be there, which I would find extremely impossible to imagine it take that long because of how close we are now, how much I drive without doing anything. Oh my God, investment well worth, right? So that's my thesis, not a timeline. It's on solving the technology and changing the paradigm of transportation, how we live in our cities and the way they are. And so it's not about next year or 8/8 or anything like that. It's who do you think is going to solve it? Do you think we're going to get there? And do you really think this will be fundamentally a paradigm shift in the world? So I don't know. So to the people who say like, oh, he said this every year or whatever, it's like, and he does. No one knows the answer to this. Like, I can't even tell you what I'm going to eat for dinner tomorrow, and you expect this guy to tell you when this is going to be solved?
Yeah. Well, I think the criticism comes from the fact that he was confident in the past. I think that's the criticism. A public company CEO, and listen, and I necessarily don't. I recognize the difficulty and the novelty of the problem, and so novel problems are going to require novel solutions, and it will always take 1,000 times longer than you think. And when you have somebody that's very, I think, in a very, very positive and ambitious when it comes to timelines in Elon Musk, that's a formula for overpromise, underdeliver, right? I think that's where the frustration comes from. I think that's where the frustration comes from a lot of people. And I totally respect it and I get it, and part of me also is like, I want this thing to happen because I'm excited for it, because I'm very excited. I want more people to experience this. I want more people to get their hands on a technology that will save lives and it will lower the cost of transportation and it will get more people to be mobile. And will people that are invested in this story like I am, will they benefit from the adoption of technology? Of course, obviously. But the technology itself is what is most interesting to me. And so when I come to when these things happen where it keeps getting delayed and delayed and delayed, I feel the frustration from other people, especially having the platform, right? But I just don't want to. What I want to make sure I do is that I want to make sure that is recognized because it's a legitimate feeling. But I think on the flip side, and I think this is where you're coming from, and this is sort of where I am at as well mentally, is like, who can do this at scale that works? And the question, and so if the assumption is that Tesla's approach will get approved for level 4, Tesla wins by so much it's not even funny, because they're the only ones that can make cars at scale that have a general purpose self-driving solution that costs a couple grand at a maximum to install in a car, and they can make millions of units per year. Nobody else can do that, not even close.
Here's the only reason I disagree with what you're saying, not this last part, but what you're leading into. You're a much nicer person than me. Because to anybody to say that Tesla's been late or has been delayed, no, it has not. It is not late. It is not delayed. Elon's been asked when he thinks it'll happen. If he thinks it'll happen this year, he's given his timelines roughly. If you're investing based on just what this one man said in his words and that's it, that's on you. That's on you for using that as your metric for the timeline. My metric is based on what I see, what I experience. This is why I said before, it's so important to have the software so you can see it. Version 10, I didn't think it was going to be done at the end of that year. Version 11, I felt more confident. That's when, I think version 11 is when you made the bet with Cindy. And I think I was texting you. I was like, oh, me and my wife just watched you and Cindy. It was hilarious. You guys were like making you guys do more of this because like you guys crack us up. Like your jokes back and forth are hilarious. Or at least it just panders to our sense of humor. But I was saying like
we like have a lot of like bickering back and forth. Like we bust each other's balls.
Absolutely. But I was saying to my wife, I was like, I think Farzad's spot on this. He's going to win this battle. And that was, essentially you were saying the end of next year is what you were saying. But you don't get that sense unless you use the software. But you see, you said at the end of next year, not based on what Elon was saying, on your own inductive reasoning, based on your own feel, your own experience. So my point is you made an assessment based on Farzad, not based on what Elon said. You did your own homework. You did your own research. You came up to your own opinion, not just taking what someone else said. That's not investing to me. You might as well be in the S&P 500. And so to put onto someone else why you were wrong about your thesis, I don't think that's cool. So that's where I push back. Like, I don't have sympathy for people who do that. I don't. Like, I'm so tired of people blaming this guy for every little thing. Does he have faults? Yeah. Should he be blamed for certain things? Yeah. But he also shouldn't be blamed for everything that people put expectations out there, what should happen, what shouldn't happen on their own. We're making guesses. We're all trying to predict the future. You have a doctor right now, right? That's helping you guys out with the birth of your child. What's the date? When's the delivery?
May 25th.
Bet you it's not going to be right. Bet you it's going to be late. Bet you it's going to be early. Bet you it won't be right. How many births have they given? And you're trying to hold this guy into something novel that's never been done without your own intuition, your own experience, your own reasoning of the why. Like that, I struggle with that. I really do. You can't hold someone accountable for giving their opinion. You can take that opinion, add it into your data set, come up with your own opinion, but his opinion isn't the gospel. It's not fact. It's not concrete. It's not investment advice. It's an opinion. Come up with your own. So that's all. It's a touchy subject for me when people do that.
I can see that. I can see that you're fired up by it.
It's not intellectually honest is what it is.
I do think that everybody would benefit if they are operating from the standpoint of doing their own research and listen, but let's be honest here too, is like when Elon says something that's exciting, like robotaxi, like this whole conversation, the first 45%, 50% of it, whatever long it's been, the robotaxi unveil of A8, the people that follow the story closely get really excited when they see that day because they're like, okay, this thing's coming to fruition. This thing's coming to fruition. But it could just be whatever. It could be something that's like the lamest thing of all time, and then it's just a way for the company to keep its customer base and investing base excited, right? That would be some of the arguments that are out there. I don't think that's the case, but it's like I think it goes both ways. I think it goes both ways. But I agree with you. I think ensuring that people experience the technology firsthand, that they test their thesis, that they do their research, they look at the landscape, they look at how other companies are doing, they look at the TAM, the total addressable market of the technology, and then they come up with their own decisions from there. I think it's the most healthy. The thing that just truly gets me, it is self-driving technology will for sure be one of the greatest technological achievements in the last 100 years, for sure, because you are dramatically reducing the cost per mile, the cost of transportation for human beings, and moving around is one of humanity's most important things that we have as a species, our ability to move around. And when you're lowering the barrier of entry to move around long distances, the TAM is going to be stupid. It's going to be stupid. And so the company that figures out how to do that with the most number of units that can do that at the cheapest cost wins. And they win a lot, right?
You were coming back from, I think, Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. I think you do a road trip up there, right?
Oh yeah, we do one this year we couldn't, but we do a
Yeah.
road trip
So
every year.
you were coming back from there at the same time, or maybe you had just gotten back, but it was when my wife and I were driving back from Boston, right? We drove up there and drove back. And, in the car, driving, of course, I'm going to listen to some Farzad. What else are you going to do?
Thank you. Like and subscribe.
And you were talking about your trip and what you saw going through Middle America. And it's funny. It's like one of those things that, really resonated with me, what you were saying, because I really do think that like anybody can make it out of any situation with just the right amount of work ethic and inspiration, self-motivation. But there are obstacles. If you live in a town where there's no way out and there's no job and no work, and how do you even get to the place if you can barely make enough to afford your rent and put food on the table, and then you can't even save anything to try to get out of that town and make something of yourself. Like you can't even save that amount. And so I think about like towns like that have just been hit, right? And it's really tough. Just imagine what happens with something like autonomous vehicles, where all of a sudden you don't have a $300 a month insurance bill. You don't have a $250 to $300 a month car note. You don't have to worry about maintenance. You don't have to worry about taking the bus because you can't afford a car and having to travel, and then you have to only get a certain job because you can only get into that job by a certain time because the bus schedule is just slightly off. And like, just imagine what that does for economic value for so many people that are good people. They just really were born into a really screwed up situation, or in the wrong town, or in the wrong country, right? We are so lucky to be in this country. And it's just unreal. But so I don't know. I just think about that so often, about that segment that you were talking about there. It's like, man, like just. Anyways, I don't really know where I was going with that, but you said something that triggered that thought in my mind, and I just want to share because it was on my mind.
Appreciate that. I mean, I think it's like how is technology fundamentally changing human desire? That's how I view autonomy. Like it's truly through that lens. Is like as humans, we have core needs and core wants that we are constantly striving for, and we constantly imagine ourselves achieving, right? And certain technologies come along that fundamentally change that thing. And so when more people have that thing in common, that's TAM. Total addressable market is the overlap of human want and need and a technology or a thing that exists that solves for that human want or need, right? And the more commonality there is between that human want or need between people, the TAM gets bigger, right? Moving around is a TAM that applies to 95 to 99% of the human population. Not just Americans, the human population. And so if you have a thing that makes that super cheap and super reliable and super safe, again, how does that technology not win? Whoever makes it. It's like, okay, but then like what's funny about that discussion is like when it relates to Tesla, it's like, well, Tesla can't have 100% market share in that. They're going to have a lot of competition. I'm like, yes, every single industry that's ever existed, every single market that's ever existed that has been game changing for humanity has competition by default because everybody that offers a good product wins. Yes. If Tesla has competition, they're in the right place. I would be more scared if there's no competitors, because that means that they're in a niche market that nobody else wants to play in. But if the no lack of competition comes from how advanced they are, then that is the best case scenario of what they're trying to achieve, right? And that's the potential they have with V12. You know, I'm not going to say that they're going to be a monopoly long term, but to say that for some reason the company is not barking up the right tree and this is not going to come to fruition, that it's an unachievable problem, or somebody else will beat them to it, I just think that boat has sailed. I really think that boat has sailed.
Do you really think someone's going to catch up to them?
It doesn't feel like that's the case right now, and I think it's because of scale. I really think their manufacturing capacity is what sets them apart from anybody. They will be able to make, like you and I have a 2020 Model Y Performance with hardware 3 that, like you, version 12 is driving me around Austin and the greater Austin area with no inputs from me. And the only time I intervene is because I'm slightly impatient. That becomes a non-issue once I'm no longer paying attention to the driving. And it will become better and better, right? So like, I'm coming from that lens. What was your question? I'm so sorry. I blanked on your question. Do I think
do you really think that there will be any competition?
Where I was going with that story. They're making about 2 million of those cars per year right now, right? Let's hope. Could be less. But they're making around 2 million cars a year of those. What other automaker? What other company? Forget automaker. Like I wouldn't even view Tesla through an auto. Tesla's not an automaker. Tesla is a robotics manufacturer that's leveraging artificial intelligence. Let's just call it what it is, right? So what other industry or company is able to manufacture that many units per year where the car will drive on your behalf, right now supervised, that's manufacturing millions of units per year? That company doesn't exist. And if that company were to exist, they need to do two things. They need to do three things. They need to figure out how to make an electric vehicle profitable. They need to figure out how to make an electric vehicle that they can sell at millions units per year, and they have to make it so it drives itself. I don't even know where the first one is still dubious to me. Like BYD is the closest, but it's unclear if they're making a profit on their electric vehicle segment. They're selling a shit ton of them, and they should be applauded for that. It's mostly in China, and we all know what kind of shenanigans can happen in China when it comes to reporting financials, but that's besides the point. So that's number one. But like no one else is there, and they're not even their management came out and said that they're not even going to try to attempt to solve for level 4 because it's too difficult. They're just going to focus on level 3. I'm like, okay, so like if Tesla solves level 4, it's like it will take a long time, I believe, for a player to catch up to them, and that's where the licensing equation comes in for Tesla.
Yeah, and so this is where I think it is going to be a monopoly. I don't care about the regulators and all that breaking up. That would be such a non-issue by the time that happens. We're not even going to care. Is how I look at it. In order to start competing against Tesla, assuming Tesla wins, right? Say they get there first, which I think you and I agree they are. Clearly, the path is going to be through vision, right? Using cameras and an inference computer. And clearly, that's going to be the right way, if for no other reason, because of the cost economics of it, right? Rather than using a whole bunch of sensors, right? They don't even have any ultrasonic sensors at this point. So, to your point, nobody can even make an electric vehicle profitable really right now, other than Tesla. And they're not just making it profitable. They're making it so profitable that they have the highest margins compared to anybody else. All right? There's not a secret to that at this point, right? You can take a Tesla, you can break it down, you can figure it out. That's all supply chain. Manufacturing is not even a secret. People can get gigapresses.
Yeah.
You know who Idra, you know who they are.
Logistics.
Right? It's like
localization.
Logistics.
Yeah.
It's not a secret. We know what there's no secret to it. And you still can't seem to do it. Okay. Let's say you stick with internal combustion engines, ICE vehicles. Nobody's even started to gather data really yet. You don't see automakers putting cameras on their car right now in a certain, setup. I mean, they have cameras front and back, whatever, but you don't see them outfitting it so that they can really start capturing things. You don't see any investments into data centers. You don't see them starting to, make deals with NVIDIA. You don't see any of this. So they
and
haven't
compute
even
hardware
started.
is crazy expensive right now too because of how much demand there is. Yeah.
They haven't even started on that. So here's my question. If they can't even do electric vehicles, which go for it. Like, you know what it is. You can take it, you can break it down, whatever. You can't break down Tesla's software. You're not going to be able to break that down, right? Because what we get on the car is not exactly what the big neural net is, right? We kind of get a compiled version of that. But so you're not going to get that. And then if we look at other industries, like look at Google search. Search engine is not a mystery on how to build one. Yet they dominate. YouTube. YouTube is not a mystery. Yet they dominate. I would say Spotify. Spotify is dominating. Sure, there's competition of peripheries, but who's really getting all the profit? Spotify. iPhone, cell phones. Sure, there's competition. Is there though? Let's look at the margins. Who's really getting all the revenue in the smartphone manufacturer? That's really one company. Like, if you start to look at this, even maybe, if you maybe eventually you start to get some competition, at most, there'll be 2, maybe 3. Just look at Uber and Lyft. Uber gets all the profits, really. They're the only one that's profit positive, and Uber started 2 years before Lyft. Like, how is it not going to be a monopoly if Tesla's right and Tesla solves it? It's impossible. And again, I don't care about the regulators and all that. It's literally game, set, match, like Elon said back in 2019. Like that's how I'm seeing it. It's like, so I do think it will be a monopoly. I don't think anybody will be able to catch up. Oh, damn.
Excuse me. Sorry.
Yeah, I guess
I was going to mute my thing.
My bullshit.
No. My mouse died, and I was trying to mute, and it wasn't working. Sorry. Yeah.
So
I agree with you.
What are your thoughts? Like, how do you steel man that? Like, I've tried to steel man that, and I can't. Like, I can't steel man the other side. Like, I don't know how. The only way
to steel man the other. Yeah. Exactly. I think that is the only steel man on the other side, is that Tesla's approach is fundamentally not going to allow them to reach self-driving technology, and they're barking up the wrong tree. And go ahead.
And our signal is that we're in version 12 now. Every day, I have plenty of drives with 0 disengagements for anything, yet I don't see anyone else. No other car can do this in the world. None.
I know.
None.
Anywhere, right?
Yeah, exactly. Anywhere. I don't have limitation. My only limitation is do this every once in a while. Like,
yeah.
So clearly they are on the right path.
Okay, I'm going to try to steel man the other side, Nick.
Please try.
The Tesla's going up the wrong tree, fundamentally. The cameras are not going to be enough. The compute's not enough. The approach is not enough, and there will always be a local maximum they reach from a performance perspective, because they don't have LiDAR and radar and ultrasonics, which is not going to lead to regulators approving them. Okay, so that's but that's based on an assumption that they don't have enough, right? Or some people might come up with like mathematical models or different approaches of viewing data and compute that say, hey, for you to be able to get to 100 or 1,000 times, because this is the question, is like trying to quantify what it means to have a level 4 system, right? So the steel man is there is data set out there that shows that doesn't matter how much compute or data you have available, you're going to need orders of magnitude more compute and data, which says that you either don't have the right hardware on the cars, regardless of what it is, or you don't have enough compute in the cars to be able to reach a safety critical level high enough so that the regulators allow you to work in those areas. Okay, so that's one steel man. The other steel man is, by the time you get to a point where regulators are willing to sign up for self-driving in these areas in a way so that it impacts Tesla's valuation to a point where it's going to be very large, right? Let's say everybody else is going to be caught up, because people think it's going to take up to 2030, 2040 for regulators to allow this kind of technology to appear everywhere. And by the time that's done, the competitors will have caught up already. They would have taken, they would have copied Tesla's approach with their neural nets and with their hardware and with their data. And so it took about Tesla about, from 2016 in earnest, once the Model 3 started ramping, 2017 to now. So about, what is this, 8 years or whatever it's been, 7 years to get to this point. And so between now and 2040, it's way more than 7 years. So somebody else is going to come through. And by the time most jurisdictions are going to allow this to happen, Tesla's going to have way too much competition and the equation goes away. So that's another steel man for the other side. But that's in both scenarios. Again, I'm the wrong person to steel man this, because in both scenarios, number one, I think that is an assumption that the novelty of the problem is not going to lead to the solution, because no one else has done it this way, or just because there's not enough data to prove that this is going to happen, doesn't mean that it's not going to happen. So like I could just flip it back on its head, like, because I get that argument a lot. It's like, well, you're just assuming these things are going to become true. And then my pushback is, you're just assuming these are not going to become true. Right. And so people will say, well, I'm better off assuming it's not going to become true, because at least I'm not exposing myself to the risk of it not becoming true. And I'm like, that's completely fine. And you have every power to do that. And I applaud you for taking that perspective. But that requires ignoring the amount of investments that Tesla has done in compute, and the amount of investments they've done in inference, and the amount of investments they've done from a data perspective, and the amount of foresight they've had in putting this hardware in every single car that's coming off the line since 2017, 2018, 2019. And it's ignoring the trend of the performance of the vehicle, and it's ignoring that people from all over the nation in the United States and Canada are reporting intervention-free drives with the existing hardware across many different jurisdictions. Yes, it's not perfect, but you're also ignoring that, right? So it's like, and that's where we're at. And you're also ignoring the culture of the company and what it's done to achieve, very impossible things, which we talked about before, right? So then I get into this like endless loop of like, when I try to steel man the other side, I always end up to where I'm at now, which is like, okay, so let's just even assume they're not going up the right tree with this. By default, they'll go up the right tree, because way too much of their resources are tied up in solving this problem. It's like Ford and GM. Their entire being is around solving for how to make a combustion engine that can make them money when they work with third-party suppliers to cobble up a car together. Tesla's entire being is around making a self-driving car. And it just so happens to be led by one of the most innovative, visionary leaders of our time that figured out how to make reusable rockets normal. That's where people will be like, you're an idiot fanboy. This is a stupid channel because you're crazy. And I'm like, okay, if that's crazy, I'm crazy. If that line of thinking is crazy, I'm crazy. I'll fully admit it and accept it. I'm a crazy person.
Yeah, I mean, like, I hear that on the steelman side, but honestly, I didn't hear one thing, that regulation will never be a thing, but an issue, because it's at a state level, so states will openly
in the United States.
Yes, which will probably be the most profitable market for this. Like, let's not kid ourselves. You could say China, but that would be because of volume, not because of pricing. So I don't think regulation is gonna be an issue at all. I think the fact that they're this far in the software, and to your point, we're seeing across 2 countries people having zero intervention drives, tells you that this is the right approach and they're gonna get there. To think otherwise, like, just because it's not solved, it's like playing Wheel of Fortune and I see FAR blank AD, and I'm like, oh, I don't know. I mean, maybe it's Farzad. Like, I mean, a YouTuber that talks about Tesla and worked at Tesla. What could it be?
Bad.
I don't know. It's like, all right, we're essentially a missing piece away, and that missing piece is just tying data, training, flywheel turning, cranking away at it.
Dad.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm still
Ooh.
thinking of different versions.
Damn, that's good.
Sorry,
Farzad.
I'm a child.
But
I'm having a child.
yeah.
These dad jokes are
Damn.
so bad. Sorry, I'm gonna stop.
It's wild. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I've tried, and then like I go back. I'm like, okay, well, to your point, like the regulators. I'll literally say it to me, okay, what if regulators say no? What if NHTSA gets in the way? What if whatever? I'm like, well, could that happen? Would that happen? Has it happened up to this point? Well, if it doesn't happen now, why would it happen then when the data is unequivocal? Like
It happened with Cruise because they suck.
it happened with Cruise because they lied and they tried to cover up. That is different. That's not the same thing. Like Ross Gerber tried to use that as an example recently on one of the interviews he was doing. I was like, that's not apples to apples. It's not, right? It's just not. Yeah. Anyways, let's pivot. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on the stock right now, because it's kind of crazy to me right now that everybody, listen, if I were to tell you, forget we're talking about Tesla. If I were to tell you, hey, I have a company called Farzad, and I'm thinking there's 2 products I want to come out with, Farzad. 2 products.
Okay, tell me.
Now, one product, it's going to be a affordable product for a mass market, and it's going to be loved. People want it. But when I sell it, it's kind of a one-time thing. I sell it, I get some margin on it, we're done. We're going to make it one way or another, but I'm trying to think which one to go first. The other one, the public would love it too. It'd probably help the lower cost market even more than the other one would. But it's got a reoccurring revenue aspect to it. What product would you tell me to lean into if you were an institutional investor?
Oh, SaaS, of course, obviously.
SaaS.
Yeah.
And it's
Software
almost
as a
crazy
service.
to me. Yeah. It's almost crazy to me that that's essentially what we're kind of contending with right now, that everybody's like, the talk of the town with Tesla. And you have all these institutional investors freaking out about a rumor that they don't even know what the truth is. And we're seeing Tesla stock really take a hit between deliveries, between Elon being Elon, between just the macro in general,
I have an
the
answer
car
for you.
market. Go ahead.
Yeah, I have an answer for you. And I talked about this with Hans on yesterday's pod. Not investment advice, not financial advice, blah, blah, blah. All that stuff, right?
Or
I think, no, it's not. Never. Never.
But you're like, don't get me sued. I'm like, or is it?
The lens that Tesla's being viewed through by the markets, I fully believe it's not through the same lens that they should be viewed through. The lens they're being viewed through is through a automaker whose profits are highly dependent on selling high margin electric vehicles to the growing electric vehicle total addressable market. I think that is Tesla's value. That is Tesla's core valuation thesis for a majority of the market, and that's what's dictating the price. So, and the reason why it's where it's at right now, which is 50% or whatever it's been from its peak, more, is that the people are seeing, they have fears that in the short to medium term, there's gaps in demand, let's say, that's going to prevent Tesla from reaching profits and earnings that are driven by those electric vehicles, right? From the profit of those electric vehicles. And so if you are removing, or let's take the Reuters article at face value and say they are 100% right that Tesla is quote unquote canceling this compact car, then you're doing 2 things. Number one, you are removing the profits that are coming from a TAM that's going to be 5 times bigger, potentially more than the current TAM that they're selling into. So that's number one, which is going to drive significantly lower profits in the long term, because now they're capped at 2 to 3 million cars per year instead of potentially 10 million cars per year. And that destroys the long-term thesis of the earning potential of the company, right? And I think that is the lens. And it's obvious that that's the lens that Tesla's being viewed through, because when Reuters dropped that article, that stock went down 5% immediately. And then Elon said, y'all are lying. And then it went back up. Just not to its original, but it went back up, right? So that's the lens. That's the lens that the story is being viewed through. Tesla announces 8.8 robotaxi event, okay? And since then, the stock has done nothing but take a shit, like it has been since the last couple of years, okay? And it's never driven by positive developments with FSD. It's driven by people's, I believe, this is again 1,000% hypothetical, it's 1,000% driven by Tesla's belief that the company is incapable of generating long-term earnings from their EV division because of either competition, softness in the market, and ability to sell at a high profit. Okay, and I think it's because the general investing population has not yet seen the SaaS story, the AI as a service story, the IaaS, side of this business. It's not
transportation as a service. Transportation as a service.
Well, shout out Kathy Wood. So they haven't seen that show up on the P&L. They haven't seen a line item that says Tesla TaaS revenue $150 million. Tesla TaaS margin 85%. They haven't seen that, right? And so it's an unproven thing in this market. People do not believe that Tesla can't be profitable on that yet. Now, for everyone who's following the story, and I think most people would agree that if Tesla can solve autonomy, is that going to make them a ton of money? Obviously. I think very few people don't believe that that's the equation. I think a lot of people just don't believe that they're there yet, and then don't warrant the valuation that from that perspective. That's why I think that the stock is doing what it's doing now.
I don't know. I mean, you have people like me, Kevin, and Ross who are sitting there saying, well, they're never going to get there in the near term because it has to be perfect, absolutely perfect to go out there. And when they do that, the price will be so cheap, it'll be like 15 cents a mile that they won't make any money on it.
It's not going to work short term like that. Yeah, it's not going to work short. Yeah. Because just simply by the fact that if you think about and James Dama talked about this, what is the value proposition of an Uber? The value proposition of an Uber is that you don't have to drive. Someone's picking you up, or out of need. Like you need somebody to come get you, take you from point A to point B. And people are willing to pay a lot. Like, dude, a trip from here to the airport from where I live is like $70. That's a lot of freaking money. People willing to pay $50 during peak pricing to go home from the bar to home, and they're like 3 miles away because they don't want it. The risk to take a car while you're drunk is insanely more than $50. So transportation has a premium. To start, when the market of vehicles in, say, the ride share or taxi, whatever, to get from point A to point B, when the market is at $2 per mile, and there is a company that offers a solution that gets you from point A to point B at the same time, it's going to show up when it tells you. It's going to take you to point B when it tells you. It's going to do so safely, and it's going to do so comfortably. Oh, and by the way, you're the only one in the car, potentially. So you get privacy. That's a huge bonus, right? You can blast whatever the hell music you want in there because you are to yourself, and you have the app, and you can talk to the car through the app, and you can just have it do whatever you want. You can set the mood lighting. You have a TV in there, so potentially you can watch a movie while you're being transported around. So there's a premium. There's a premium that comes with a self-driving car, right? But the cost per mile is less because there's no driver. The largest percentage of the cost equation for a self-driving car, that's the win. And you're somehow telling me that that's not going to be more profitable than an Uber? That's crazy. That's especially now when most cars, when 99.9999% of the miles driven right now are not that equation in a certain jurisdiction, you're not telling me that's going to carry some form of premium? And the premium and the profit is going to come from the removal of the driver which in theory means you could match Uber dollar for dollar, and that makes bank. Automatically, it makes bank, right? You just undercut Uber by 10%, and you're still way ahead. And Tesla can figure out how to split that between the fleet provider and the company itself, right? It's like the equation is a no-brainer.
Dude, I would pay the exact same for Uber, just not to have someone in there.
A lot of people would.
Just be able to save my AirPod battery, and I can just watch what I want on the screen out loud.
In the short to medium term, a lot of people would do that. Long term, I agree with Kevin, where the cost per mile will plummet because either through competition or whatever, but that's a forcing function. By the time robotaxi is 15 cents per mile, those companies are making way more money on the periphery on the robotaxi through services, whatever that is, right? Like it's shows, movies, entertainment, karaoke, drinks in the mini fridge, the mini bar, whatever that is, like whatever that equation is. By the time we're at 15 cents per mile robotaxis, this is 2045, and the economy is completely different. The economy has
not
changed.
Even that, just not. I mean, everything will change, right? Like not have. Your child's never going to drive.
Probably.
Like, think about that.
Yeah. I'm still going to teach him how to drive stick.
I mean, you should.
I'm old school.
Fun. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I know you're old school. You said a TV in a car instead of a screen. I'm calling you out, old man.
And I'm still pretty sure you're older than me. I think we talked about this. How old are you?
I'm 33.
Oh, shit, no, you're not. Why did I think you were older than me?
I don't know.
I'm 34. I'm kidding. 37.
Because
your wisdom. It's your wisdom.
You're Iranian, right? Iranian don't crack, right? Isn't that?
So no, there's a lot of cracking.
Oh, damn. There is, right?
There's definitely some cracking.
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely see. I mean, just
on the face, bro. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Where are you going with this?
There eventually houses are gonna be built without garages. Like it'll be weird to have a garage, right? Like but going back to the stock, it's kind of baffling to me. Like I get your point with like Gary Black and all them. They're like, well, we feel like you're letting this go, this profit in the short term.
It's not even Gary Black. I just think that's how most people think.
I'm just using analysts in general. Yeah. Like even if they weren't going to do like a $25,000 vehicle steering wheel and all that, even if they weren't going to do that, if they decided, no, robotaxi is the way to go, which I don't think that's what's going to happen. But I'm just saying, even if that was the case, at what point do you just trust in the person and not think that you know what's right? Like I'm just
because
saying,
that's how investing works.
No, hear me out. To your point, like yes, I agree. That's how investing works.
You just totally 100% contradicted yourself.
No, I didn't. I see. I know what you're gonna say. So let me prove to you. You gotta make up your own opinions, right? You take in data to make your own opinions, formulate them, right? There is a certain point where you also have to take in the data of history. Elon said, we're going to pay for things over the internet. Everybody laughed at him, said, you're crazy, you're stupid. This will never happen. People will never do this. Well, guess what? We pay for everything over the internet nowadays. People said that, no, you're not going to create a rocket company. Only countries do that, whatever, let alone reusable, landing themselves. Not going to happen. Well, I guess he was right. You're crazy to go against GM and Ford and Toyota and all these companies. Well, not only are they the biggest market cap company, but they're also the most profitable. Let's ignore that. There's a certain point where in your data set, you have to realize like, well, signal. Every time this guy says that this is the way, this tends to be the way. He just put a Neuralink in someone's head. Las Vegas is using their tunnels now. Like, damn it. Like when someone, I think, here's one of my thesis for life. When somebody's right over and over and over, you say you always have the best wife. I don't know about that. I'm about to get a refill right here. When you see this signal over and over and over of someone being right and right and right and right and right and right and right, especially when it comes to innovative new technology, and they have all the data because they're in the company and they see everything, there's a certain point where you have to be like, all right, if they're saying this is the way, all those other inputs, that's got to have some weight on my, like, you know what? I really wish they would do this, but there must be something that they're seeing that's giving them this confidence, and I'm not going to have the ego in the way to be like, no, they're wrong. Like, there's a certain point where that has to be.
I agree, but at the same time, it's a slight contradiction to the statement that says you have to do your own research. Right?
That is research.
Okay, so what you're saying is
how
what
is
you're
that
saying
not
is
research?
Listen, I agree with the fact that if somebody is going to have large visions and then those visions come to fruition every time, 100%. 100%. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. But
that's my only thing. It's like Ron Barron and his thesis for investing has
that's
been
the trend.
That's
the research trend that you're talking about. It's like individual identifies visions, large scale visions that are deemed as impossible, borderline idiotic. They come to fruition. They're extremely profitable. They create new TAMs. And then he's done that multiple times. And
Dude,
so doubting that seems like a fruitless endeavor is what you're saying.
It's like everybody in the world is walking that way. And I'm sitting there like, man, that really looks like the edge of a cliff. And the 3 or 4 people I see walking that way, I still see them down the road. But those people are disappearing on me. And the vast majority are walking that way. And it's like, which way do I go? They seem to still be standing and not falling off and dying. Those people I hear screaming every time they take a step off what looks like an edge. And it's like, I get it. This is what most people think and the masses and all that. And I get it may seem speculative, and I would normally agree with you. It's speculative. But there's a certain point where it's not speculative when, not saying there's no risk, but there's a certain point where it's not gambling. When it's somebody who's been so consistently right over. Just an example. He just reposted Master Plan Part 2, right? How the frick did he call 6 billion miles? How did he know to get rid of LiDAR that far in advance?
Yeah.
Like, it's
yeah.
You know, it's like it's like when you watch LeBron play. You know, it's like, you know, basketball IQ. I don't know if you've been watching him with JJ Redick and they're
so good. Goated podcast already. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there like I grew up playing basketball. And I'm like, "Oh my God, this is mind-blowing."
Yeah.
And you're sitting there and he's like he's playing chess but in basketball. And he's like, well, yeah, you're going to do this. So obviously he's going to do that. So this is the counter of that. So you got to do this. So you got to think like, okay, well, what if I do this? And if you slip up here. And he's seen it way far ahead. And that's Elon when it comes to this space. And honestly, watching LeBron and JJ Redick talk like that, like it just gave me more conviction to Elon because I'm like, this is literally the same thing.
It was a light bulb moment.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So I actually love that. It's like people that are in the 1% of the 1%, right? So you have basketball. So you have you and I who are schmucks that try to play basketball, right?
Yes.
You know, I'm pretty sure if I play at full speed, I pull both hamstrings. So I need to be very careful playing. But I know my way around a court, okay? But
Yashu, let's go.
Let's go, Yash.
He's 6'6" beast Canadian.
He's my first pick. I'm putting him in the paint. Unless he's like Victor Wembanyama, I'll put him in the perimeter. We'll switch him up a little bit. Dude.
I got Tesla Yoda on my side.
Okay. He plays ball?
I don't know, but okay. I feel like he would do some mind games.
Okay. So there's a general population, you and I, who are schmucks when it comes to a certain expertise. You and I can go to a court, we'll play basketball. I tear my ACL and my hamstring, but I'll have a good time. Okay? Then you have the 1% of basketball players who are actually less. So let's say the 1% of basketball players are athletically gifted and physically gifted enough, and they also have a skill in the game that allow them to start pursuing a career professionally to play basketball. Then you have a 1% of that 1% that end up playing in a professional league, earning a living, i.e. the NBA. And then you have a 1% of that 1% of that 1%, that's the LeBron James, that are so beyond the capabilities of a regular basketball player that they are able to operate at a level that makes everybody else look silly. And then and they're doing it at age 39. That's another thing, right? So, and I think that works for Elon 100% in when it comes to technology and industry. I 1000% agree with that analogy. And so your sort of process of thinking about they have data and they're exposed to things that no one else is, and to assume that they're barking up the wrong path because you don't understand that or you don't have exposure to that is a recipe for disaster, because this guy is a proven LeBron James. Like, we've seen what he can do in the court. We've seen him hit the game winner and winning the national winning the national championship, setting up his team for great plays. Like, he knows how to freaking operate a pick and roll better than anybody, right? Like, he's learned how to shoot the ball at long range, right? So like, he's learned how to shoot the three. He's changed his game over the years, right? And so that analogy works for Elon Musk.
I'm just saying, not financial advice again, but if LeBron James says, hey, Farzad, I want you to stand over here, and once Nick sets a pick for you, I want you to roll off here and then get ready to shoot. You're not going to be like, well, but, hold on, LeBron, actually, I think what we should do because of the time on the clock, you're going to be like, yes, sir, I will do that. And because he's
if
been
LeBron's
so right,
telling me that, if you're telling me that, I'm going to question it.
Yeah, of course. My point is, when Elon says this is the vision, this is the way, there's going to be dips. Buy the dips. Like, okay. There's a certain point. I mean, investing, there is a certain point where it's a leap of faith. There is.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
We don't know the future, but you can do the best to predict or to bet on people who have been consistently right. And at
it's
the
a game
end
of
the day,
likelihoods.
It's a game of likelihoods. Well put. Exactly. And the likelihood of somebody who's been consistently right over and over and over. Think of school. That one kid in the class that, like, just no matter what, he always got 100 on the test. Like, no matter even the hardest freaking test, you're like, what the hell? All right. If I told you that, all right, we're going to take a test tomorrow, who do you think is going to get an A on this? You think it'll be him? Yes or no? Yeah, likely yes. And I would put money on that. Like, I mean, it's just, I don't know. It's like just this consistent record of excellence and execution. You can't ignore it. But for some reason, people like to. It's almost like.
And it's not like random either, right?
No, it's not.
Right.
But it's, you see this over and over too with so easy. Buy low, sell high. So easy, right? So easy. Yet we can't do it. People can't do it. People suck at it. People sell high and they buy, or people buy high and they sell low over and over, right? Something such a simple thing. And so what I'm saying is also just as simple. Listen to the people who have been right over and over and over. Do your research, formulate your own opinion for sure. But part of your opinion should factor into the fact that don't try to big brain it and be like, well, they're going to be wrong this time. Don't try to be that guy. Because at that point, that's your ego trying to get in. You're not trying to take in data to formulate an opinion.
Unless you have evidence that points to that.
Yeah, fair.
Right.
But I think too often people try to be like, I'm gonna be the one that's got the gotcha.
But let me flip that on its head on the Tesla story. I think that evidence that when we're talking about, unless you have evidence that it could point to that being wrong, I think that Twitter acquisition spooked a lot of people. I really think it did. To me, like, if I view the Twitter acquisition, to me, it very much fit under the scope of dude likes to identify large-scale goals that he can leverage into game-changing companies. But it's in the medium of social interaction and not hardcore engineering, right? But it definitely has an overarching large scale goal attached to it. I think when people saw that, they were like, something's up. His head's getting too big. It's an ego move. He's lost with this free speech thing. It's not going to turn out to be what he thinks it is, so on and so forth, right? I think we're getting more and more evidence as time goes on that, hey, maybe there was something to this free speech thing in the United States. It was getting weird. I think a lot of us can agree that it was getting weird. But I think a lot of people saw that and they're like, okay, something has changed. And then they see margins go down on Tesla. They see revenues go down in Tesla. They see units not growing the same way that it did before, and they put two to two together, say, okay, so you got this leader that's quote unquote distracted with this acquisition, and you have the company that has the largest market cap valuation out of all his companies is quote unquote suffering because of his distraction. And I think that was a red flag for a lot of people. I really think it was. I really think it was. And now I don't think it's warranted for the long-term vision of the company, because artificial intelligence is a supremely difficult problem to solve. And it's pretty interesting when you start to think about it that Tesla has made its biggest leap yet in artificial intelligence with the car, with Andrej Karpathy not being at the company and Elon being quote unquote distracted, which nullifies some of the arguments against that argument, in my opinion. But I'm just trying to contextualize, like, I think when we're talking about this sort of like trend that's happening, I think people saw that and they got spooked.
People get spooked all the time. Anytime there's change, people don't like it. People hate change. I work in technology with technologists every single day. I'm telling you right now, they don't like change. They're reluctant to change. They struggle, right? Humans hate change for some reason. Like, I get it. It's uncomfortable. It's not, like we like consistency. We like familiarity. But look, Steve Jobs moves on. Tim Cook comes in. Apple bigger than ever. Bill Gates leave. Microsoft bigger than ever. JB Straubel leaves. That allows an opening for Drew to come in. Drew does amazing things. Andrej Karpathy leaves. Not until after he leaves do we get V12, right? It's like progress continues no matter what. Right. If anything, these changes bring in fresh blood and new ideas and allows things to grow. I get it. People got spooked. But here again is, and I'm not claiming that Elon was thinking about this. The Twitter acquisition will be one of the things that sets Tesla apart. Follow with me on this. Right now, everyone's talking about AI and all they talk about is LLMs. I've already talked about why that's kind of hilarious, because Tesla's the only company doing real AI, other than some of these other robotics companies. They're the ones that you can buy a real AI solution today and use it as a subscription. Okay. Right now, when it comes to LLMs, everything is becoming a very level playing field. Why? Well, because what OpenAI did with ChatGPT was essentially train on internet. They're at a point now where they're trying to transcribe YouTube videos to help train because they need more of a data set. So I'm of the opinion what's going to happen is the real winners in this space will be people with unique, vast amounts of data. Well, by Elon buying Twitter, guess what they all of a sudden have?
I agree.
And that led to the creation of XAI. And XAI is definitely training, obviously, off of X data. Now, who do you think is going to get the benefit from that, from Grok, from those LLMs in the car, to be able to say, hey, can you actually wait here or take me through the drive-through of this, whatever? It's going to be Tesla. So this thing that spooked people that they thought was a big mistake, whatever, is actually going to become additive eventually to the Tesla story.
Right.
Right.
And that's the vision aspect. That's the vision aspect.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he said it. He said it that the total acquisition long term will be extremely valuable to Tesla. He said it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he said it. It's just weird when you have somebody like him saying the things that he says, and we live in this age of social media where the opposite side is not only loud, but they have a megaphone with legacy media in a way. Like legacy media is the mechanism that allows a lot of this noise to come to the forefront. It really is, because game changing companies take forever to materialize. Because again, by default, novel problems require novel solutions, and novel solutions take forever to get to. And the more difficult the problem, the longer it takes, and the more mistakes you're going to make. And the more visible the company, the more it seems like you don't know what the fuck you're doing. And when you have an entire media landscape that loves clickbait, it makes it seem like you are a burning bus going down a cliff about to crash into a field of cacti, excuse me, and hell's coming down. Oh, and there's a tornado right around the corner in F5. Yeah, it's just the world that we live in. And that's why we have channels like yours and mine's, where because of that landscape existing, we are able to thrive. Because we're offering a way to at least think about what would be the contrarian thing out loud. So it's like it almost comes full circle. This whole thing comes full. It's like it's such a weird time to live in, to watch this whole thing happen.
What's weird is that mainstream media still gets talked about the way it does, because people really don't watch mainstream media.
I agree. That's a fair point. That's a fair point.
So that's really weird. But
it does have an impact. But Nick, I'm telling you, it has an impact, brother. It has an impact,
agree.
brother. You go out into the public, you talk to some people that, let's say, that are completely fine, regular people, lovely people, but you can see where they're getting there. You can hear where the information comes from. And if you're as embedded in the media landscape as, like, say, like somebody like you or I could be, like, I study media closely because I'm fascinated by it. I really am. You can tell just by when you bring up a topic and you listen to someone's like knowledge of that, you can tell what news channel they watch. You can tell what YouTube channels they follow. We are all a collection of like, we're all a collection of like, we are magnets of information that are tailored to our biases. And then when we're prompted to talk about that topic, we just are a mirror of whatever information sources we've collected. And us Tesla fanboys, in a way, mirror the things that Elon Musk says in a lot of ways.
You're about to find out that I really do watch your stuff.
Oh, God.
You and Hans, I watched it yesterday, so I don't know if it was yesterday. It might have been like a week ago you guys did this, but I watched it yesterday, and you guys were talking about not echo chambers, cults.
That was yesterday.
Okay, so you guys were talking about being in cults, and I agree with you. Most people are a mirror based on what they consume and their biases, and they're just reflecting that back out. That, I would say in many ways, could be considered the Matrix, right? You're living in the simulation. What Hans was talking about was, at least I'm aware of the cult I am, and I try to steel man against it. I try to find the flaws in it.
And cult is like a strong word. It's like biases. Yeah. Like we're aware of our biases, right? But
exactly.
No, too many people don't do that. I agree with you.
Yeah, like I'm constantly trying to be like, where am I wrong? I want to be challenged to a really good argument about where I'm wrong, because I don't want to be wrong, right? So I'm constantly trying to push back on it. Like, what I think this. Why do I think this? Why do I like? Did I hear someone say this? Did I do my own research? Did I read something? Sometimes I'll say something out loud, and I'll be like, why the hell did I say that? So at the very least, I'm doing the mental exercise to look in that mirror rather than just being that mirror. Wow, this is getting heavy.
It's
and
true.
Reflecting outwards, and to me, I think that is the big difference in society, that so many people try to be the mirror and they reflect out rather than looking into the mirror and trying to do the hard work, right? Because it's hard to look at yourself. It really is.
And I think there's also like a variable of, I think I think humans in general just like coming across as if they're well informed and they are somebody that should be trusted with information, right? But I think the downfall of that is that sometimes we will ingest information from sources that claim to be trustworthy, and in reality, they're just pushing propaganda, or they're just pushing an angle or a set of information that is not capturing the full picture. And that's where, that's why, if I talk about my specific situation with this channel, it's very obvious for the watcher that I'm definitely somebody who reports on a lot of the positive developments with the Tesla story. Let's say, as an example, right? I'm not the, let's say, like the opposite side where I'm constantly reporting on the negative things that are happening with it, right? But I read them. I ingest it. I let it be part of at the very least, I try to, I do. I mean, I'm not even going to say I try to. I do it. I seek out negative information around the story because that's part of my process to ensure that what I've done to set myself up to financially benefit from the development of technology from Tesla comes to fruition. And so exposing myself to that negative stuff is an important part of the thesis, right? But the way I put the information out, it goes through this set of filters in my brain and on the computer where I've distilled what I deem to be important and not important from my lens, and I distill what is relevant to the conversation at hand when I'm trying to put out a piece of content, right? So, but a lot of that stuff is what's getting into our eyes and ears from all angles, and some people do that with the intention to try to create an outcome, right? And some people do it with the intention of just sharing and entertaining, which is, I like to think that's my goal, right? But we're now in this sort of like world now where we're driven by engagement and clickbait, constant, because that's how these media publications make money. Like for example, CNBC today, they ran a story about how 3,900 Cybertrucks were recalled because the plate on the accelerator might slip off, which led to no injuries or deaths or crashes or anything like that. And CNBC ran the story, and it's like, it got a lot of engagement and retweets and stuff, right? Not that long ago, Ford had a 500,000 F-150, I believe, recall, about fires. That didn't make it. Why not? Why? CNBC knows that they're going to get way more engagement out of the Tesla story than the Ford engagement because people are paying attention to the Tesla story, not Ford, right? So, and that's what drives the discourse. That's the age that we live in today. It's selective information that's driven by how much money it can make an individual, and it's almost always not well-rounded because that's how people ingest information.
You just
generally,
have so much truth and all that. So the way
but there's a trend. There's a trend that's changing. I'm sorry, but there's a trend where people are realizing that that's not a good way of being informed, and that's where I'm very hopeful. That's why conversations like these are good.
But you're very correct that in the Tesla community, and this is why we get called an echo chamber, we tend not to highlight. I don't want to say highlight. Whenever there's bad news, people are like, "Oh, you're ignoring the bad news." And listen, you got facts. That's all you really have is facts. And to me, there's no reason to get up or down on the facts. They just are what they are. All right. Like, we can talk about bad news. I don't like that Tesla had less deliveries in Q1. I don't like that their margins are going down. I don't like that the judge got rid of Elon's comp plan. I don't like that we have to vote on it again. I don't like that. I don't like that we haven't solved FSD yet. I don't like that there's a whole attack on Elon. There's lots of things I don't like. But these are the facts. These are things that have happened. This is part of the game, right? It's like if I'm playing chess. Yeah, sometimes I'm going to lose some pawns. Sometimes I'm going to lose my queen. Sometimes that rook It's going to be gone. All right, that happens. Where we get a lot of crap for is our optimism. And that to me isn't about facts. That's about like trying to predict about the upside, the alpha. And like with FSD, for example, I don't know when it's going to happen. All I know is my experience with it. And to me, that's no different. Again, if I'm playing chess and I put out my queen as bait because I know once you take that, I'm about to have you in checkmate once I move my knight. Like, it's optimism. I'm feeling good inside. Yeah, sure. I lost that pawn. I lost that knight. I lost that rook earlier. Sure. But it's part of the game. And so I think people get mad at the Tesla community when we don't get overly excited about the bad news. They're like, oh, you're just ignoring it. Like, no, we're not ignoring it. We're aware of it. But we're also looking at the broader context. To your point with the Ford analogy. Like, yeah, this happens. But what was my initial thesis? Autonomy. Are we still trending that way? Yeah. So everything else is just losing a pond here or there. Like there's ups and downs, but if we're still headed in the right direction, that's all I care about at the end of the day. But you're right. Like I do think it's important to highlight all these things that are drags on the story. And I to be frank, I do think we do, right? Like I see Sawyer all the time. He'll sit there and like, it's not like he didn't post about Elon's comp getting nixed by the judge. It's not like he didn't post about the Cybertruck pedal situation. It's not like nobody's talked about the fact that Giga Mexico hasn't been built yet. It's not like nobody has talked about the shipping issues or the Giga Berlin issues or the fact that China's slowing down or the rates or like, it's not like we haven't talked about that. We're aware of it. We're all aware of it. But you know what we're focused on? The bigger picture. All those things are going to happen. Every company's going to have their shit. It's going to happen. But it's the bigger picture. It's just like investing in the S&P 500, right? You got recessions, you get great recessions, you get depressions, But if you're looking at the bigger picture, you really make out because you're not getting lost in the trees for the forest.
Yeah. It's a level of importance of these events. Positive or negative. Like, okay, does a 3900 Cybertruck pedal recall that they fix in a week, is that an issue? Not well, it's inconvenient. Is it an issue? Not really. Is if the investor base votes no to to reinstate Elon's comp plan, if they vote no, that's a fucking issue.
That's a real big issue.
That's a real big. That is I'm considering selling all my Tesla shares issue, because what are the implications of Elon's comp plan not being approved?
He leaves.
What does it mean if he leaves? Half of the engineering staff will leave within 12 months, guaranteed. What does it mean if they lose half of the engineers? Progress slows down dramatically. What happens when progress slows down dramatically? The stock takes a giant shit. Because then
can we
FSD,
talk about the irony of that?
I know, yeah. People that want Elon gone are fulfilling a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, well, not just that, but it's like if Elon leaves,
which was already voted yes.
If Elon leaves, problem. Tesla has a key man risk in Elon. We hear that all the time. Even Ross talks about that. Yet Elon's that important. Yet when he says, this is our direction, no, I got a problem with that.
It's hilarious.
It's like, so which is it?
Which is it? Yeah. It's a narrative. Yeah. I mean, it's a narrative. It's a narrative. It's a surface level analysis of the situation. And maybe I'm blind. Maybe I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, which is always going to be an option. But that to me, it would be unfathomable to me that investors vote no to that comp plan. It would truly, it would be it would be like Steve Jobs being fired from Apple level of stupidity, in my opinion.
Yes, it would. That's a great analogy. That's an excellent analogy.
It would be. I would like to think that the investing base for Tesla is aware enough that doing, especially when it's already been voted yes, and investors very much benefited tremendously from that comp plan. They did. There was a gigantic amount of value creation that was brought forth. If for some reason that doesn't pass, boy, I would lose faith in humanity. Personally, I really would.
Have you dug into if this even matters at this point?
What do you mean?
We can vote on it, but does that have any impact on the actual Delaware ruling or what happens there? Like, this?
Yeah. So when I had Richard on, who's a lawyer, like so the ruling is that they have to revote. And so it's not canceled; it's rescinded. And what rescinded means is that it has to be re-brought forward with the proposed changes to the comp plan. And the only thing that they asked for was, in reality, was to just have it so that the relationship between Elon and the board was more visible. Well, that was more clear what that relationship was. That was really
they have it for I think 47 or like 48 billion now, right? And it was like 53. Or don't quote me on my math here.
Well, I think it's because some of that has already vested, I believe.
Okay, yeah, and that's when
I believe that's the delta. I could be wrong. Whatever the number is, yeah.
Yeah, I haven't. Cause, some of us still work for Farzad. I haven't had time to look into it, but I was wondering if that was to cover the legal fees for the
legal fees haven't been settled on yet.
Okay.
Yeah. So what's his face? The legal they want like $4 or $5 billion in fees, which when I was talking to Richard, the lawyer, he says that there's no way. There's no way because you have to prove that the plaintiff lost that much, that they lost $55 in value, and the lawyer was able to get it back, and so the lawyer deserves a cut of that, right? But if it gets voted yes, which again I would be extremely shocked if it's not, then they can't say that there was loss to the plaintiff because it. And they can't really prove that there's loss to the plaintiff even before it's voted yes, because those shares never vested. So how can you prove there was a loss if it hasn't been like it gets into like legalese bullshit, right? So it gets into weird territory. So, but yeah, it's like, but that's an important story. The vote is insane. That is going to be a pivotal day for Tesla investors.
Oh yeah,
gigantic. It cannot be understated how important that vote is.
And yeah, so that's the next shareholder meeting, right?
Yeah, in June. This earnings call will be the last interaction, I think, before that.
April, May, June. Yeah, because June is part of Q2.
Yeah.
So what do you think happens this quarter, or this earnings call? I mean, we're going to be on this in what's today, Friday?
4 days or something.
Wow, 4 days.
Yeah. And Tuesday.
4 days.
I think the call will be what?
This is the biggest call, I think, in the history of Tesla right now.
I think it's top 10.
Yeah.
I think it feels top 10. I think Tesla will post a really good number for energy. And they'll try to dress that up as much as they can, and they'll try to bring it to the forefront to try and sort of shift the narrative away from auto, because auto will be ugly. I think auto numbers will be ugly. I still think they'll post a net profit. I still think it'll be a positive net income, but this might be like 23 cents EPS or something, maybe less. I have to go back and do my model. But I think there's going to be a lot of talk about autonomy and FSD. I think there's going to be a lot of conversations around that, around what FSD is going to be, maybe some foreshadowing for the robotaxi event. I think there's going to be a lot of focus around reorganizing the company, that they have the layoffs, and Elon seems to be re-engaging in some parts of the business that perhaps he was maybe more focused on the bot. Now he's shifting back to maybe like sales and stuff because of the layoffs and whatnot. So I think there's some of that. There's going to be a lot of that discussion as well. but I think it's going to be heavily, and it's going to be compact. Like okay, what did Reuters say? What are they lying about? I think that's going to be part of the conversation as well. And then 4680 and Cybertruck ramp.
Do you think he answers that about the Reuters article?
I think it's the elephant in the room, and I think he's gonna have to say something.
I think he comes out to your. I just thought this right now, so I didn't think this before. Literally live. This is what I'm thinking.
Wow.
In the past, whenever there's been an elephant in the room, you said that, and it made me realize it. We've had other elephants in the room before, and in their opening statements, they addressed the elephant in the room.
Yes.
So I wonder if he addresses that right out the gate, so we don't have to have stupid questions about it.
That's what I would expect. That's what I would expect. Yeah.
I have a thesis. So if that happens,
what do you think? Yeah.
I hope they address it. I think humiliating these, assuming it's false, humiliating these articles that are false over and over, I think is the right thing to do. It's just sad the state that we're in, that it's all about clickbait and getting things out as fast as possible and I get it. Like, you got sources, you try to figure certain things out, but I don't know. I mean, for all you know, this is somebody who's just working on the line and they heard something from someone else. Like, right, I work at a big company. Like, we hear things all the time, and then it's not true. Can you
pause? I got to pee again, dude. I'm sorry. Can you pause? Just hold your. Yeah, I've been drinking a lot of water.
Who's pregnant? You or Cindy? No.
Oh.
I hope that helped. So I have this kind of theory. So assuming I'm hoping they address the elephant in the room, because otherwise we're going to waste time with those questions. I have a feeling that they're going to say the same shit that they've said every quarter about robotaxis and autonomy. Nothing different. But this quarter, all of a sudden, Wall Street's going to be like, oh my God, so bullish on Tesla because of whatever on 8.8. Like, I feel like even though he said the same thing over and over and over and over, finally it's going to seep in. Maybe it doesn't. I don't know. But it just seems like they're going to try to price this in, 6 months before the event. Because if it's something big, nobody's going to want to be on the wrong side of this. Right? Like, you just look like a fool. So I'm kind of hoping for that. I'm hoping not so much that they say something is in Tesla, but more so the Wall Street starts to wake up on this, because they are. Goldman Sachs is trying to figure out what a robotaxi would look like. We see the BGB squared, BB squared. I forget their names. You know what I'm talking about, right?
I don't even know who you're talking about.
God, like bestie number 5 from All In Podcast. What's his name?
Oh yeah.
It's their podcast. Yeah,
I know
Bill
exactly
Gurley and
Gurley.
I can't remember his name. Anyways, they're talking about this nonstop. Like, it's starting to seep out, and people are starting to get more excited about it. And I believe in Signal, like I said. And we recently had a interview from, again, I'm blanking on his name, but he's one of Elon's former fix-it guys who doesn't work at Tesla anymore. But he was talking about what he's seeing with Optimus, what he's seeing with FSD. And this was before 12 was out. And sure enough, he was right. And this was in January. I think that interview dropped. And now we're seeing...
the Chinese gentleman?
No. Garcia or Gracia.
Okay. Oh, Gracias? Antonio Gracias?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
But my point is, these are people who see things internally that we don't see. Same with, God, I can't remember his name. Bestie number 5 on the Gurley podcast. He's obviously friends with Elon. He obviously sees things internally. If you listen to these people that are close by, that's Signal. You wouldn't have had this 10, 20 years ago, but now we have on YouTube, and we can listen to these people interview and what they're seeing and what they're hearing. And I just don't ignore that. And we're starting to see this, slowly trickle out. So I don't know. I'm pretty excited about this earnings call. I think it's gonna be really exciting. It's gonna be a lot of fun. To be fair, I mean, it's always fun with our mega stream, but
Yeah.
I'm excited.
It's going to be very entertaining. It's going to be
Yes.
very entertaining. Now, when it comes to the stock, though, I still feel like it's going to take a giant. I don't think unless Tesla's able to pull something out of the hat and they're able to show that maybe Cybertruck ramp is going much better than expected, and they think the margin profile for that vehicle is actually going to boost margins for the year instead of weighing it down because they're earlier in the ramp. If they can show that, hey, Model 3 NX, like 3 in Fremont has been kind of a disaster getting it ramped to refresh because compared to the other facilities. So that's going to weigh the story down. But Model Y, they've been able to, we'll see what the margins are there. They're going to have a lot more cash sitting in inventory in the first quarter because their days on hand went up because of some of the logistical challenges that we're facing. So there are factors. Now, the other thing too is that I think FSD, the revenue they've been deferring will be recognized in the first quarter because they turn FSD, but that's a one-time event, right? So it's not going to be that big of a deal. I'm curious to see if they're going to give us adoption, they won't be able to give us adoption rate of FSD yet because it's not out of the free trial. But they'll surely talk about how many more miles they're doing per day on FSD, like autonomous miles. Maybe we'll get a roadmap to, I mean, and if you look at the say questions, like the questions from investors, like there's a lot of questioning about what's Tesla going to do with the robotaxi piece. But it is going to be supremely interesting. It's going to be extremely entertaining, but I do not think it's going to be a good day for the stock, personally.
Okay. So,
and I'm very happy Herbert's driving this one because this is the first one I'm going to be able to actually look at what's going on instead of have fun instead of being stressed out driving a stream. Thank you, Herbert.
This is going to be FSD for you, FSD stream. Two things, and then let's let you go hit the gym. One, are you drinking right now, or are you being sober in support with Cindy?
I mean, I drink from time to time. I haven't really drank too much in the last few weeks because I don't want there something happens and I'm fucking drunk and I can't take my pregnant wife to the hospital or something.
Wow, we went from 0 to 100. I'm not saying drunk. I'm just saying having.
That's how I operate. No, I do drink. Yeah, I have a glass or two of wine. Yeah.
All right. Well, I was gonna say, would you be interested in doing a beer bet on how the stock does the following day after earnings? Because I think it's not going to be bad. I think we'll probably be green. Think about it. We can talk about it on the stream if you're up for it or not. Just a beer bet. I'll send you. Okay, cool. I'll do it. I'll send you my favorite beer from local here.
Okay, and I'll send you mine.
And you send me. Yeah.
Electric jellyfish. You ever have electric jellyfish? No. It's an IPA. You like IPAs?
Oh, I love that's what I was going to say. Bro,
this one's going to blow your mind. Yeah.
Have you ever had Florida Man?
No. Okay. You send me Florida Man. I send you electric jellyfish. Deal?
We do this regardless.
Done. Yeah, I know. I'm going to send it to you regardless. Yeah. Okay.
Cool. All right. Yeah. The second thing is I just want to let you know, or let everybody know, if you're still on here, if we haven't bored you yet.
Yeah. 2.5 hours later.
This is why I love this community and talking, because I don't know who you're talking to, but you said something that I was like, oh my God, mic drop. This was a genius move. So my friend, my best friend Greg and his girlfriend Monica, they have Teslas, and Monica was literally getting upset, like literally upset that she's going to lose FSD after the trial. And she's like, I wish it wasn't $200 a month because I would totally get it. I'm really upset that I'm not going to have it because she loves it. She's using it that much. She said, I really wish it was $99. I posted it on X and it got very little engagement. Yashu posted something very similar before I did, and that blew up, whatever. And Yashu got us, in my opinion, this is how I'm framing it. Yashu and his Juju got us $9 subscription. I sent that to her, and she's like, oh my God, I'm in. My buddy Greg, he's like, I'm in. And at first I was like, oh, great, they're going to grow. And then I was kind of like, it kind of sucks because I really feel like $200 is a good deal for having the ability not to drive. And then I was watching you, and you opened my mind. I'm like, no. This is such a genius move, because those people, they're not locking in $99 a month for FSD. This is $99 for FSD supervised. Once you're hooked, you're hooked. And I saw that with her. She was hooked. She was visibly upset about this. And so if we get to the point where FSD is solved, all right, well, you want to be able to take a nap, not pay attention? Well, that's going to be $200 or $250 or whatever.
Right, exactly.
The stickiness, you're in the ecosystem now.
Exactly.
And I was like, oh my God, this is a Trojan horse move. And I didn't think about that until I was watching you. So all that just to say, this is why this community and all the brains and talking about what's happening. And I genuinely think that Tesla and Elon get ideas from us. And I think we got signal recently about that, because Elon will send, posts that people make like, hey, is this true? Or, hey, what about this? Or, hey, let's do that. Yeah. So I don't know. It's just, I just, when there's something like that genuinely opened up my mind to what might be happening, I like to share it, like literally. Yeah. Keep talking about these things, because
thank you.
It was just a mic drop moment for me. I'm like, oh my goodness, brilliant,
awesome.
I'm happy to hear that. I didn't see that. It's like when someone says, like, you're playing chess, right? Like, I know you play chess a lot, and I do too. But it's like when you're sitting there and you're thinking about doing something, and someone's like, who's better than you, is like, hey, why don't you do this? You're like, oh my God, I looked at the board for like 10 minutes. I didn't even see that. I didn't even think about that. That's what happened.
Just
to me.
push my a pawn. What?
Yeah, exactly.
That's all I gotta do. I thought I was looking at my queen. So. No, I appreciate that. I think that's where, and that whole conversation is different from robotaxi.
Yeah.
Like FSD supervised is $99 a month. FSD unsupervised, level 3 in some situations like highway and places where it might ping you, that's $299 per month or $199 per month. FSD unsupervised at all times, and you never are going to be prompted to drive, that's $300 a month, $400 a month. Robotaxi that doesn't have a steering wheel and pedal, where you can change the interior to have a sleeper, to have a limo style, to have a commuter workspace, to whatever, to have whatever you wanted to have. That is a completely different form of autonomy. And it's all underpinned by the same hardware and software. Like if Tesla can prove that they have the safety required to execute on the technology, it's game over. It's game over.
Let's leave it on that.
We'll end it there. Great. And recording.
All right.